You are driving to work and someone abruptly cuts you off in traffic. Or maybe you're grabbing coffee and the barista dismisses your order with an eye roll. One person might sigh, recognize they are having a bad morning, and go about their day. Another person might feel their chest tighten, their face flush, and spend hours replaying the interaction. Why do two people experience the exact same event but have completely different internal reactions? When a minor offense derails your afternoon, the reaction has little to do with the event. You have tripped a hidden internal mechanism. To diagnose what is happening in those moments, we use a baseline metric, the inform versus affect rule. When you are informed, you observe bad behavior and process it logically. You assume they are having a bad day and your heart rate stays steady. When you are affected, your body reacts. You experience a rush of adrenaline, anger, or defensiveness to the exact same behavior. Learning to accurately identify when you are in this affected state is the mandatory first step to gaining emotional control. When your internal temperature spikes, we have to look at where that heat is actually coming from. The intensity of the reaction suggests the other person is reflecting something back at you. This occurs through projection. To protect a specific self-image, the mind identifies a negative trait it refuses to acknowledge in itself and assigns it to someone else. Psychologist Carl Jung described these suppressed, unacknowledged traits as the shadow self. Recognizing your shadow self does not mean the other person's behavior was acceptable. It simply accounts for why your anger felt so explosive. Understanding this mirror effect allows you to enforce a boundary against bad behavior without suffering a toxic internal emotional spike. To neutralize those emotional triggers, we use a tool called the 3-2-1 shadow process. Let's bring back our rude barista. Step 3 is describe it. You stick only to the objective facts in the third person. They interrupted me and used a harsh tone. Step 2 is talk to it. You have a simulated internal conversation using the second person. Ask them, why are you rude? What is it about you that bothers me so much? Step 1 is own it. You must adopt the first person and admit that you also possess this negative capacity. I also have the capacity to be rude. I am sometimes rude. Saying I am rude creates intense psychological discomfort. Your ego will resist, but accepting that discomfort is the price for neutralizing the trigger. Theory requires application. Let's test this framework immediately on a more complex situation. Consider a coworker who constantly brags in meetings. They monopolize the conversation and desperately seek validation. It drives you crazy. First, analyze your reaction. Are you simply informed that they are insecure, or are you physically and emotionally affected by them? Assuming you are affected, run the 3-2-1 process. Work through the steps and explicitly write down your statement for step 1. Own it. Stop the video. Passive watching cannot build emotional regulation skills. Perform the mental exercise and then press play. Welcome back. If this coworker was driving you crazy, we can establish the baseline reality. You were affected. Let's skip directly to resolving the most difficult part of the exercise, your step 1 statement. To resolve this trigger, your uncomfortable admission must look something like this. I also crave external validation. I am reliant on approval. Here is the psychological mechanism of that admission. By embracing this hidden vulnerability, you integrate the shadow. The internal rage diffuses. Once the shadow is integrated, that coworker's bragging may still be annoying, but it no longer holds the power to trigger an uncontrollable emotional reaction. Let's review the core components of this process. First, distinguish between a calm observation and an emotional trigger. Next, recognize that an outsized reaction usually reveals a projection of your own shadow. Finally, use the 3-2-1 sequence to dismantle the trigger and reclaim your peace. What we resist persists, but what we have the courage to own loses its power over us.